Today, as we broadcast from your state capitol here in Austin, Texas, in the offices of Representative John Frullo, and with me here in the office right now, and we had a little bit of big news yesterday, the announcement of the Texas GOP State Victory Chair, Stacy Hock. And Stacy Hock is in studio, or I say in studio, in the office with us here at the Texas Capitol. Stacy, welcome to the show, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who don't know what a state victory chair, what that entails, talk to us a little bit about that.
That means that for the next 18 months, I am fully focused on electing Republicans in the general election 2020 in Texas, all over the state, up and down the ballot. And that's going to be that's a big focus. That's a big deal, because as we saw just in the midterm elections, the Democrats are pretty pumped about this state and electing Democrats and trying to turn this state blue. So how do we prevent that from happening? That's right. And frankly, folks in and around Lubbock and all over rural Texas saved our bacon in many ways. And that energy is not slowing down on the Democratic side. We're seeing that pick up. We're seeing enthusiasm and life and hope coming from all over the nation that Texas is in play in a way it never has been before. And it means that more than ever, we need to get right back to where we've always been, which is, what does it mean to be a Republican in Texas? And that's what I'm going to be focused on. The Republican Party stands for freedom, and we know freedom in Texas. It's in our blood. And so when people ask about what is the Republican in 2020, in 2019, and going into 2020, what does the Republican Party look like? What's your answer on that? Texas is the model for what it means to be a Republican-led state. We are what the rest of the country turns to when they want to understand, what does Republican leadership and Republican governance look like? And it means individual liberty. It means light regulation. It means fair judicial. We believe in property rights. We believe free people do extraordinary things. We believe in limited government. And that's the message that we're going to hammer every day between now and 2020. So we all know it. So are you going to be focusing on statewide races, on the Senate race, on President Trump and how he's doing in Texas? Is it all of the above? All of the above. If Texas doesn't reelect our president, we never elect another Republican president. If Texans don't reelect our senator, the U.S. Senate becomes vulnerable. And that is true all the way down. You may know that we only have an 8-seat margin in our Texas House. Yeah. Those seats are being targeted. We not only want to defend every single one of them, but we want to get back the seats we lost in 2018, and I think we can do it. Do you think that and one thing that I see out in West Texas and in the Lubbock area, there are a lot of people who go, and I'll get the text messages on our text line, hey, we're solid red. We're a solid red state. There's this idea that Texas is turning purple or turning blue. We don't need to worry about that. It was just a one-off thing with Beto O'Rourke. And while that may be true, maybe it was just a one-off thing. How do we need to focus and how do we need to look at 2020? Do we need to look at it as Texas as a swing state? Absolutely we do. We need to be working today like our lives depend on it. And if we've moved into Lubbock from Seminole or any other surrounding area, we need to re-register. Even if we're having the same representative, we need to update our data. As we turn 18, we need to register. As we talk to our neighbors and folks who instill this and take it for granted, they need to register. And then we need to show up, and we have to show up early and often. Also, technology today allows folks all over the state to connect with other folks all over the state. We can start calling and texting from afar. It doesn't matter where you are. We can all get together with our friends, have parties, and start texting people in my neighborhood in Austin because we need it. Yeah. Visiting with Stacy Hock, Texas GOP State Victory Chair, who was announced last night that she is going to be the 2020 State Victory Chair. Let's talk about the urban areas, because that's where you're going to have your work cut out for you, is in the urban areas, the major cities in Texas. How does the conservative, the Republican message get out and bring in either new voters or convince people who maybe voted for Beto O'Rourke in the last election, hey,
come back home to the Republican Party? How do you do that?
I think it goes back to reminding people what we stand for. And that message has taken a back seat or possibly been taken for granted. And we need to get back to those values because those are still deep within urban and suburban areas, men and women alike of all ages. We need to empower people to engage in these campaigns and in these issues. We need to listen to them and hear them and know what it is they're caring about. We care about life. We care about liberty, and that is what the party stands for, and I think that message will resonate. People want to know that who they're electing is looking out for their prosperity and for that of their neighbors.
You know, I'm sure you've heard the argument before and you know, the comment before. I hear it all the time. You know, when a piece of legislation isn't going 100% your way, or you look at in Washington, D.C., everything's messed up in Washington, D.C. You know, even when Republicans had the House, the Senate, White House, border security was, you know, we didn't get the border wall. And so you hear the comment, well, what's the point? What's the point in voting for a Republican anyway when nothing ever seems to change? When someone says that to you as the victory chair, what is your message to them?
Well, it starts with, do you want an income tax? Because if not, I mean, if so, that's fine. But if not, don't become complacent. Do you care about life as babies are born? Are you comfortable with allowing policies that effectively are infanticide?
Yeah, well, we see what the Democrats are doing in other states like New York and Virginia.
Do you want to attack the oil and gas industry and shut that down and force an artificial market for other energy sources? Those are the kinds of issues that are on the table. It has gone so far extreme. The political process is meant to be hard. Yeah. We don't get everything we want. Absolutely, the 2020 session begins now, and we need to see meaningful legislation coming out of this state legislature. I think in the last 2 years, we've seen that at the U.S. level. We've seen that in the federal level. We've seen a reduction in taxes. We've seen incredible judges being appointed. We've seen Veterans Affairs being corrected. We've seen deregulation happen in an unprecedented way. Not everything is as we would have it, and it's difficult to make progress, especially now, but we need to have a successful session here in Texas so that we can show people what it means to have Republican leadership.
As state victory chair, do you come up with different issues that candidates need to run on, or are you about messaging and rallying voters?
I think voters need to understand the principles on which we stand. That is my focus. And I think we have gotten very in the weeds on some specific issues where the balance is off from what the principles are that we stand for as the Republican Party. So for me, that's my focus.
What are those issues, or some of those issues that we've gotten too far in the weeds?
Well, for example, property taxes. We're absolutely laser focused on giving some property tax reform and hopefully even some property tax relief in this session. That's incredibly important to all Texans. That is where that will be a clear measure of if we were able to successfully do that and if we're able to do it in a way that's meaningful and systemic change going forward. There are other similar kinds of issues that are at the forefront this session that matter. The other piece to it is, why do we care? What are the underlying philosophies of being a Republican, and why does that matter over something else? And there's this larger conversation happening, and we have not been engaged in a way where people have it instilled in them on why we are not for democratic socialism,
right?
Why we are not for big government, why we believe in empowering people to live their lives and solve their own problems and don't look for the government to do that. So we almost have to go back to a philosophical conversation as much as we need to talk about the specific issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've got your work cut out for you.
Thank you.
Here in Texas. Good luck to you.
Thank you
and
so much.
Let's keep Texas red.
That's right.
Absolutely. That is Stacy Hock, the brand new 2020 GOP State Victory Chair. We'll go ahead. We'll take the break. When we come back, we'll begin to wrap up today's show here at the Texas State Capitol, the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO.